Amazon.
Not as much.
No,
It's under. It's not under 100.
right.
Probably, or just that.
Hell yeah, set the mood in this.
Theater lighting.
Theater lighting, baby.
Welcome back. Mind the
Yes,
Game.
sir. Mind the game. Here again, baby.
We are very fortunate to have incredible fans on Mind the Game. And we put it out there to our community to ask questions. So
Love
this will
that.
be a Q&A episode, and we got a ton of questions,
Love
ton of
that.
great questions.
Love that.
And we really appreciate the support and all the fans out there tuning in all the time. So
Yes,
thank
sir.
you very much. All right, Laker Nerd asks, why is the triangle offense less utilized in today's game?
Pace and space, and the way teams switch switch everything now, it'd be very challenging. To run the triangle, and obviously the triangle was great.
Amazing.
In its time, it was great offense. Tex Winter, obviously, great, and Phil and them implementing that into the NBA, and having that. That pinch post game with the gaggle action on the backside, being able to, read and react off of there.
Two-man and three-man games.
Two-man and three-man games. I thought, it was definitely a great ecosystem to have. I just think the game is so much more spread out now. The three-point shooting now, the attempts on three-point shooting, the space. Obviously, back when they were running it,
all that stuff was inside.
Yeah,
the
everything was
three-point
inside the three-point line. Bill Cartwright and Luke Longley and Horace was kind of a hybrid. He shot a lot of long twos, but none of those guys, Dennis Rodman, none of those guys was really shooting threes.
Right.
So they built a system that was perfect for their personnel.
Right.
But now the game is just so much different. To try to run the triangle offense right now. It'd be very challenging just because how the game is played and also how defense is covering. You could take a lot of things away, now by just like switching a lot of things, depending on your personnel. Obviously, that has a lot to do with it. But I think it was great in this time. But I don't see how it could it could be good. You can use certain things from it.
Yeah,
There's still like like you run 21. We run 21 where you pitch it ahead and chase it. That's basically an extended version of kind of the triangle when you hit
taking components
it's taking component off of it. They used to, MJ would be on the baseline and then, kind of use the Chicago screen off Luke Longley or one of the centers to get a catch in the middle of the lane. There's certain things that have been taken. If you watch our game, there's small little bits that's been taken from the triangle offense that teams
Still
and
there.
players run. That's still there. So it still has an impact in our game. It's just the whole landscape is not. I don't think so.
It would be interesting to hear Tex, his thoughts on how it would adapt to this.
Yeah.
What tweaks would he make? Because I think you're right. Like, it's just too punishing.
Yeah.
It's too difficult and too punishing to cover the space and pace game, right? The guys are stretching the floor to the deep corner, out to the hash marks. Guys are flying down. Like, are you in the gaps? Are you not? What are you giving up? Like, I think some people say maybe the game's gotten more homogenized, but like we talked about, it's more the jazz, the feel, play out of principles. That's what's hard to defend.
Right.
When you know what someone's running every time, even with their counters, that predictability can be problematic along with the switching. So I'd love to hear him know like how he would tweak it.
Yeah, I mean, Tex is so great. I guarantee he could,
Right.
what would be, it's like almost like, like Bill Walsh, running the West Coast offense. Like they're running, he would probably, what would he do? He would make it to what it looks like today's game, but running it exactly how they ran it, in the 90s and early 2000s, I just don't.
Yeah, too easy to defend. You're forcing a lot of twos, a lot of long twos, compact the paint.
Right.
It's just not a fit for this era, but it would be interesting to know.
It will be interesting
where he'd take it. Here's one from Windy City Assassin. Who were the greatest defensive players each of us has faced and why? You have anyone in mind that you're like, that was a great defender?
Yeah, Ron Artest was, Metal World Peace now.
He was
Ron
solid
Artest,
granite.
my goodness. Really good with his hands. Laterally was really good, strong as an ox. You know, I played against my early years when he was in Indiana. I mean, you know, it was challenging, you know, for sure. You know, it was one of the best defenders probably I've played against.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting question, right? Especially you go back to, you know, back in my era and your early career, like the game was different, right? Like you talk about defenders, you're thinking about rim protectors typically, you know. Tim Duncan, you know, just his feel for space, ability to block shots, you know. KG, you know, had some versatility to it as well. Incredible communicator. You know, then you think about the guards. I mean, I came in the league, you know, MJ was one of the best defenders. But point guards, you know, I always give Jason Kidd a nod, you know. You know, he didn't. Jason doesn't have a career highlights of dunking the ball. I mean, obviously he could, but that wasn't his game. But his like mobility, explosiveness, like his lateral quickness, like he was a freaky athlete in a different way, right? He wasn't always going to take off and dunk on people. But the way, like I remember seeing him one time, they take the ball, like bounds, we're trying to press late in the game, and there's literally guys 10, 12 feet on either side of him. And the guy kind of went this way and Jason faked and he threw it that way and he picked that pass off. Like I was thinking to myself, like, I'm in the game and I'm like, rewind that. How did that ball, like he had him leaning and he lit it and stole the ball. So like his athleticism and also, you know, when he was up for it, when he was, you know, pissed off and competitive, he could really get after people. So, but my point is, there's so many players out there that defend in different ways that it's hard to pick one, but so many great defenders.
Yeah, for sure. I had to go straight back to my early days. Like I was trying. Ron definitely had you like, okay, this is what the league is about. Okay, just continue to lock in. This is a hell of a test for you as a 18-year-old kid out of high school, like, you know, going against
with a target on his back.
I was like, okay, I love this. This is awesome.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. From Dustin Nielsen, why is ring culture so much more prevalent in the NBA than in other sports? I wish we had a simple answer. Right?
Oh my goodness, I do not know the answer. I wish I had the answer to this, but I'm not sure, man. It's funny, I don't know. I don't know why it's discussed so much in our sport and why it's the A-all, B-all of everything. Like, okay, you weren't a great player if you never won a championship. It's like, or if you won one, then you can't be in the same conversation with this person. It's like,
but that's a great point, because what you're saying is like, no matter what you have, you need more. No matter what.
Right.
No matter what, like it never ends.
Yeah, right? It's I don't know, man. It's just like, you sit here and you tell me, you know, Allen Iverson and Charles Barkley and Steve Nash, you know, are fucking wasn't unbelievable. Like, oh, they can't be talked about or discussed with these guys just because this guy won one ring or won two rings or won, like, it's just weird to me. It's like saying Peyton Manning can't be in the same room with Brady or Mahomes because he only has one ring. They don't never discuss that in their sport.
Right.
Or telling me that Dan Marino is not the greatest slinger of all time, or he can't be in the room with those guys because he didn't win a championship. They don't discuss those things, you know. I don't know. Did Barry Bonds win a World Series? I don't think so. I don't think so. Barry Bonds never won a World Series. So. You can't sit here and tell me that he's not the greatest baseball player to ever touch a bat. I don't understand where it came from. I don't know where it started. I hope that we have to appreciate more of what guys have been able to accomplish, what guys have been able to do. A ring is a team accomplishment.
Right.
And if you happen to have a moment where you're able to share that with your team, that should be discussed. This team was the greatest team, okay? Or that team, you can have those conversations. But like trying to nitpick an individual because he was not able to win a team game or a team match or whatever the case may be. I don't know where it started. It's just it's a long conversation, especially when it comes to like, you know, me individually. It's just so weird. It's so weird.
I mean, coming from someone who's won a bunch of them.
Like, it's just so weird. It's never enough.
I feel like it was in the 90s it started to shift, you know, when I got in the league. Now maybe I'm short-sighted, our memories are fallible. I don't
Yeah.
know, but I felt like it was starting to become that way. I don't know. I wonder if sometimes it's part of the way we cover sports nowadays. Like we don't necessarily, like it's not 50-50 glorify and critique. It seems like it's more critical than it is glorified. I'm not asking for pro athletes to be glorified, but we are talking about the best in the world.
Yeah.
So I think it's really like we got to be careful sometimes how we can be so dismissive of a team, a player, an accomplishment, or a failure, because these are the best in the world, no matter how you slice it.
Yeah, for sure. It's like you automatically dismiss people in their careers when you just be like, oh, well, he didn't win a ring, or he doesn't have a ring. It's like, have you actually sat down and actually like really looked at this guy's career and what he was able to accomplish? Jerry West, I think, went to like 9 straight NBA finals.
Right.
And,
the logo.
And was only able to win one. Right. And he's the logo of our league.
Yeah.
So you can't sit here and tell me that, okay, well, because he only won one, the guy can't be in the same room with the guy who won 2 or 3 or 4. Like, why not? This guy, he's our logo.
Not good enough.
Like, it's not good enough.
New logo.
Like, yeah, it's just, and rest, our late great Jerry West. Man,
the late
unbelievable
great
person too, by the way. I love that guy. Big shout out Jerry West. But yeah, I don't know when it started, man. I just hope that we appreciate the guys who definitely, don't matter, man.
Right.
At the end of the day, when you're all done and you're done and the game has passed you by, I hope you just, appreciate, what we're able to do.
What do they say? They say life's an illusion. This is just all noise, really. You got to run your own race, enjoy it, be in the moment, be proud of what you accomplish. If people want to talk well or poorly, that's on them.
Yeah, that
represents them. I always say that, right? Like what we say is a representation of us, not the subject we're talking about as much as anything.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, here's a question from Daniel Maina, .n on IG. Why are teams having a difficult time closing games against the Indiana Pacers?
That's a great question, Daniel.
And let's set the stage on that question for some people. So they played the Bucks in the first round, came back from a crazy situation to win, I think, the deciding game?
Yeah, that was game 5?
Yeah, I think it was game 5. In Indy, overtime. Gary Trent had a big game.
Huge game.
A couple turnovers, couple threes, drive to the basket by Hallie, and game flips like that. They go and play the Cavs. So most people know this, but of course they had this crazy comeback against the Cavs. I think, did they miss a free throw?
Hallie missed a free throw, got the rebound, got it back, dribbled out.
Now, the shot's the shot, but it was like another 14-point.
Right.
I'm going to call them all 14-point comebacks in 2.5 years.
That's their whole thing.
Right? It feels like it. Then they go on and play the Knicks in the Garden.
Game 1.
Crazy game. The Knicks had no business losing. They come back.
Smith hits all the threes.
Hits the threes, and Hallie hits the shot that bounces up. Reminded me of the Kawhi shot, Toronto, Philly, that bounced around a bunch of times.
And they win in overtime.
Game 1 of the NBA Finals on the road. We think they're done, and here they come again. I mean, I'll set the stage, but it's pretty remarkable mental toughness and resilience they have. They never stop playing. Never stop playing.
Boom, bingo.
That's the number one.
That's the answer right there.
They don't stop playing. And then the other part of this, I think it's important for fans to recognize, as players, we don't want to admit this, but you play to win or you play not to lose. And at times when you have a 14-point lead with 3 or 4 minutes left, you're looking at the clock like, how do we manage the clock? Because it would be stupid not to. But what does that do to you? You're trying to find the balance about being intelligent, still being forceful and aggressive, but not being silly, not being cavalier. And so what it does is it innately sometimes gets teams on their heels. They're trying to manage the clock, then win the game. So I think there's a nice switch in dynamic that makes the game. That's why basketball's great. Right? One team's got nothing to lose. We already got beat. We're down 14 with 3 minutes left or whatever. We're
let's
beat.
see what we got.
Let's go. And for the winning team, if we lose now, so you're on your heels, you're negative. So I don't know. I love the way they play. They play fast. They shoot threes. They have good free throw shooters. They're a more physical and I think better defensive team, especially than prior years, than we give them credit for. And they're just incredible, I think, at mentally staying
Yeah,
staying
there
with
it is right there. They just don't stop playing, and they just mentally, engaged, man. They don't waver. No matter, win, lose, or draw, they don't waver. So that's the answer right there.
Amazing skill for a team.
For sure.
Amazing skill. This episode is sponsored in part by American Express. American Express knows that for an obsessive basketball fan like me, the playoffs mean a lot of travel time. Between broadcasting games and catching up with old teammates, I'm on the road almost every week, from Boston to LA and everywhere in between. After all these years, I've learned that the journey is as important as the destination. That's why I've always tried to find a spot to stretch, grab a coffee, and get my mind right before heading over to the arena. Fortunately, there's a card that makes every part of that journey better. With Amex Platinum, you earn 5 times membership rewards points on prepaid hotels and flights booked through AmexTravel.com on up to $500,000 on flight purchases per year. Plus, you get access to the Centurion Lounge, which makes travel that much more enjoyable. That's the powerful backing of American Express. Terms apply. For more information, visit americanexpress.com/travel. After many years in the game, both on court and off, I know all about high-stakes showdowns. That's why I'm hooked on Michael Crichton's Binary on Audible. From the creator of Jurassic Park and ER comes this classic techno thriller about a radical aiming to bring down the government with a deadly nerve gas. The cat and mouse game between the terrorist and a determined State Department agent had me on the edge of my seat in the ride over here. But Audible isn't just about heart-pounding thrillers. From electrifying suspense and daring quests to spine-tingling horror and romance in far-off realms, Audible delivers thrills of every kind on your command. You'll find gripping titles that keep you guessing, exclusive Audible originals, and bestsellers that hook you from the first minute. Ready for your next great adventure? Sign up for a free 30-day trial at audible.com/game and discover what lies beyond the edge of your seat. Question here from Lakers Lead. How much do assistant coaches matter in the NBA?
Quite a bit. I think the responsibility that a head coach has on, the things that he has to prepare for and the things that he has to get the guys ready to play is so much already, and, for the assistant coaches to be able to take some of the burden off the head coach, either with helping with substitution patterns, helping with all the personalities in the locker room. A head coach shouldn't have to deal with that all the time. Now, I understand, I've had fortunate enough in my career to have head coaches that had an open door policy. If you had a problem, come and talk to me. But on a day-to-day basis, right, a head coach shouldn't have to be facilitating that all the time, right, because there's ups and downs and things, and guys have their emotions throughout the course of a season. And if you have great assistants, they can, they can tune that down. They can help with that, facilitate that. And also, just the stuff like the small things that happen when guys get to the arena early, or guys get to practice facilities early, or being able to have assistant coaches that come out there and work with you, watch film with you, get on the court with you, things of that nature, and just conversate throughout the rest of the rest of that day, throughout the rest of the games, on the road, whatever the case may be. So I think assistant coaches are very vital to team success. Yeah,
I mean, great rundown there. I think it just doesn't work without assistant coaches in all capacities. I think fans have to understand that whether it's them dealing with personalities for the coach, or the coach dealing with the personalities and the assistants dealing with some of the film and tactical elements, preparation, there's a scale there. But all that work needs to get done. You're playing 3-4 games a week. You have to cut up responsibilities and collaborate. Maybe we should break down for fans what an NBA assistant coach's responsibilities are.
I mean, where do we start?
Yeah. So first of all, usually NBA assistant coaches have 1, 2, 3 players that they're responsible for. So that they have to work on film, their routine. In the NBA, just for fans, everyone's got to have a routine. You play so many games, different time zones, you're traveling. Some guys are high-minute guys, some guys don't play and got to stay ready. Maybe we start there. What does it look like on a staff with an assistant coach and his responsibility to a player?
Well, yeah, I mean, you started off by saying, in the sense of when it comes to routine, guys have a routine and they're locked in on that. And like you said, you're changing time zones, you're in different cities, but the one thing that never changes is the time that you're supposed to be on the court, the time you're supposed to be in the weight room, the time you're supposed to be in the training room, getting that work done. Now, you have some of the older vets, sometimes it could change kind of just a little bit depending on, if they played a lot of minutes the night before, or if it's 3 games in 4 nights, they might switch it up a little bit. But for the younger guys and for the guys that's like, 5th, 6th, 7 years into the league, it has to stay the same. And guys go off that routine, and the assistant coaches is the ones that are you're accountable for your own work, obviously, but the assistant coaches be on you about it. And, so every day, when it comes to, okay, this is what time you need to be on the court. If you shoot at 90 on the clock, or if you shoot at 50 on the clock, okay, well, before that, 10 minutes, come out 10 minutes early so we can watch film. We can lock in on, the film from the previous 3 or 4 games, or just last game, or we just clipping the defensive side, or whatever the case may be. They're locked in on everything that needs to get done for when the game starts, you're already prepared. And if you're not someone that's in a regular rotation right now, then like you said, stay ready. They have those games. Sometimes you could come, I get to the arena so early, there's times where if I don't beat everybody there, that you could have a couple guys that's not playing out there actually running up and down the court with assistant coaches, staying ready. Going through the same offensive things that we're going to run, the same defensive coverages that we would do, so they're always prepared whenever your number is called, because we're all professionals. You have to stay ready, and the assistant coaches, they stay on that.
So essentially what LeBron just mentioned here is the player development component. And that happens to the star player all the way down to a guy who's trying to make his name in the league. It's different. Obviously, a star player, it's about refining, tweaking, staying optimal. For a young guy, it might be like a 3-year plan.
Right.
And trying to build there. You mentioned playing, the stay ready group, we used to call it in Brooklyn. Guys that don't get a lot of minutes need to run up and down. So one thing just to mention is usually NBA film rooms nowadays are built with 4, 5, 6 guys that have played. At least 4 or 5 of them have played in college or maybe overseas. So they can play against your young guys, just have enough bodies, because the rotation guys can't play every day. So you need guys to play against them, whether it's 1-on-1, 3-on-3, 5-on-5. So that's an important thing for people to recognize. You find guys that are intelligent, hardworking, that play the game, that you can teach the film stuff to, but they're able to get on the court.
It's funny you say that, because one of our assistant coaches, who pretty much works day to day with Bronny, was James Harden's college backcourt mate.
Okay.
So
So did he get any shots in college?
Probably not. Probably not. No.
We
He brought the ball up, gave it to James.
Yeah.
James, do your thing. But like you just said, those guys are, either played in college, played overseas, and so when they're getting out there, they're like really going, obviously they're going at the guys, and those guys are going at them as well, and it's still fun. It's still competitive, So having that ordeal is definitely great for the stay ready guys, for sure.
As far as the extended responsibilities, so a lot of NBA teams have an assistant coach as an offensive coordinator, a defensive coordinator. They also have to do scouts.
Pre-game scouts. Yeah.
So you'll break down the next opponent. So typically for fans out there, an NBA assistant coach may have, who knows, 5 to all the scouts, depending on how your staff divides them. But that coach has got to probably watch typically like the last 4 games that team's played, start to put together clips, start to formulate a game plan. Then they go and talk with the head coach about it, how we want to play them. When are we blitzing? When are we switching? What are we doing after the switch? What's our second line of defense like? What actions can we go out with them? So there's a lot of scouting that goes into it. I'm sure you've had some coaches that were incredible at game planning over your career.
Yeah, my first stint in Cleveland when Mike Brown took over, 2 guys that was basically, ran a lot of our things. Mike Malone was our assistant coach. Lloyd Pierce was our player development guy. Chris Gent was one of our player development guy. And Mike Brown gave them a lot of the reign, and obviously Mike Malone's an NBA champion as a head coach, and obviously, you see Lloyd Pierce now is right there next to, Rick Carlisle in the finals right now, so, those guys get a lot of responsibility, and I think there's a sense of pride too when you become like an assistant coach and you start getting that responsibility where now you're doing the breakdowns of teams and you're doing the scouting. So you come in, you do the scouting, you're saying, okay, this is the personnel, this is who you're guarding, this is things they're gonna run, this is how we're gonna prepare for them. And if that assistant coach, if you win that game that night because of your scout, you know, the players start to feel a certain way too about it. Like, you know, you start knowing, like, if you got 3 or 4 coaches and one of the coaches is doing the scout and we're winning those games, you know, you get like excited for that coach to come up and talk again, you know, because like you said, it could be, you can have 3 or 4 coaches that does scouting throughout the course of the season. So there's a sense of pride from assistant coaches too when they get up there and they do their scout and they win those games, you know. So that's pretty cool too.
Yeah, they're keeping score.
No, they definitely keeping score for sure.
They had a good draft at the start of the year on the opponents, but they're keeping score.
Right.
You know, one thing that you know I think is an interesting topic of conversation is NBA staffs have gotten so big. Now, I don't think there's one way to do it, but I do think that having a big staff can be too much sometimes. You know, nowadays, you know, you got a head coach, you got 8 or 9 assistants. You know, you got 4 on the front, you got 4 on the back at least. You know, that's before you mention film guys, analytics guys, like we've mentioned, guys in the film room that are playing. You know, it adds up to you're managing a lot of personalities. And frankly, at times, you know, coaches are trying to make their way in the league. You got 8 other coaches with you. You're trying to validate your presence. It can be very difficult for a head coach, I think, to manage the personalities on the staff.
And I don't even remember when it took the spike. I don't remember. I guess I just remember just one day just coming to the bench and then just like looking down and was like, holy shit, there's as many coaches as players sitting on the bench.
When you got in the league, I think it was probably a head coach and 3 assistants on the front.
But there was no guys. I don't remember guys being behind the bench when I first came in. Like,
no, now you have more coaches behind the bench than you do in front. Now I think there's plenty of work. There's enough work for everyone to do, but managing the voices, the opinions, you know, even sometimes the egos. That sometimes, especially, I would say this, especially for young coaches, I think that can be a challenge, right? You know, being a coach in the NBA has never been more difficult in a lot of ways because you're kind of a startup CEO. Right. If you're a young coach, you come into a situation, it's a new project. No matter if you have a veteran team or not. You know, you got 8, 9 assistant coaches, so it's like a staff of 10 coaches. You got 4, 5, 6 in the video room. You got, depending on the organization, 4 or 5 in analytics. You got 10 in the performance team. You got a general manager, assistant GMs. You know, player personnel director, all that stuff. So you look around and you're kind of in the middle with the GM of 50 people plus, 50, sometimes 60 people. So
that sounds like
that's
running a business.
It's running a business and it's not, unfortunately, depending how you divide and conquer the work, you know, a lot of times it can be more managing than it is coaching.
For sure.
Than it is X's and O's. And so, especially in a player empowerment era, you know, trying to facilitate the way agents are involved in our game, the way owners are involved in the game, you know, there's a lot of dynamics that I think make it very difficult. So sometimes really being very, very focal in how you build your staff can be super important.
You got me thinking now, like, if a head coach, the head coach can he decide how many coaches he actually wants to be on the bench, or is it mandatory?
So the league allows a certain on the front, and then there's only a certain amount, I think, because of space on the back. Now the team can decide. How many seats, how many they want to fill on the back. But that's limited because, like, say you go play the Lakers might say, in our building you got 6 seats behind the bench. Use them how you wish.
I was just wondering, like, if I was a head coach, like, if I was like, okay, well, I just want, you know, 3, you know, seats in the front and 2 in the back. And that's it.
You absolutely can. I think either you have to have a minimum of 3 or 4 assistant coaches, obviously, to fill in front of the bench. I think the interesting part comes now. What's the general manager's relationship with the coach? How do they feel about it? What is the owner as far as salaries?
Well, if I was like, I just want my number 1 assistant on the bench in the front, you know, and my number 2 and 3 assistant behind, and then 1 more guy. And that's you know, I don't know.
I actually don't know the rule of having less than, but I think the philosophy you're coming with is interesting, right? Like, because I think one thing that I maybe struggled with as a coach and I wonder if other coaches, is clarity at times. Being over thoughtful, thinking of too many parameters,
sure.
thinking of too many, this, that,
Then you
and the
start
other.
getting side conversations that's going on in the timeout. Is we still preaching the same thing, or is this guy telling me I should be doing? I don't know.
So your point of I mean, obviously you're exaggerating, but you got one assistant here, keeping it clear, keeping it simple, making sure you start with your North Star and you stay as focal to that as possible. Of course, we need to adjust. We need to think of everything. But I think fans have to understand, NBA coaches, especially with these big staffs, they've thought of everything.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a matter of what do they think they can transmit to their team and their team can execute, right? And so that is a part of this that I think is really important to recognize.
For sure.
So.
But I think a head coach I think a head coach is great, but I think a head coach, as great as they can be, is only as great as their assistants. I think their assistant coaches really, really help throughout this micromanaging things. Head coach is so locked in. You guys are standing up, throughout the whole game pretty much, and you guys are trying to watch everything that's going on. And is that guy in a rhythm? Is that guy not in a rhythm? Or maybe even miss that. I'm so locked in on, we didn't blitz this guy the right way. And to have the assistants to be able to sometimes just lock the head coach back in, not saying you wasn't locked in. It's just, maybe I was just focused on this. We didn't get a great shot the last 3 or 4 possessions. I wasn't thinking about, this guy right here. I hadn't put him in 4 or 5 minutes, and having the assistants being able to micromanage a lot of things and bring things to the forefront of your mind too, while you guys are focused on so much. I think, when you have great assistants, man, I think it matters a lot.
Important point. I think there's great coaches, but there's also great staffs.
Yeah, for sure.
That make a coach better, and the totality, the way they work together is really important. We got a few questions about coaching. What makes a good coach from AE Coach 32? This is a sliding scale.
Yeah, it is. What makes a good coach? I think what makes a good coach, one, holding guys accountable. Being very clear about what you want to get accomplished. And that's every day. This is what we want to do. This is how we want to play. And also being able to have, once that trust is built, being able to, if you have the personnel, to be able to, have that extension from that guy on the floor, that y'all can kind of have that relationship that's even deeper than just the other 14 guys, or if it's 2 guys, that you have. But I think, as far as coaching, coaches has always gotten the most out of me and got the most out of the teams that I've played on since I was a kid to now. It's just not sugarcoating it, not being afraid to have that conversation, and then just having a clear cut, understanding of being prepared. When a coach is prepared, and it's every day. It's the practice, it's the film sessions, it's the games. Obviously, wins and losses take care of themselves. The ball bounces in different ways, and that's things you can't control. But what you can control is how prepared you feel when you walk out on the floor as a player. And I think that your coach and the coaching staff, put you in position to feel okay, we have the answers to the test, and let's go out and execute that. So I think those are great. There's so much more.
But communication,
but
preparedness,
communication and being prepared, I think, are 2 of the great qualities that a coach can start with.
Sure.
Being prepared and just being able to communicate. And we all different people. So your communication may be, very, very ha, or your communication. Some guys' communication may be just more pull you to the side, or I may talk a little louder, or talk lower. And I think for players, you can't always listen to how they say it. It's about what they say.
Right.
And you can't be, emotional about the process. So communication and just being prepared. I think those are 2 great things you can start with, and then all the other stuff you start to learn. We all, we all learn as the days go by, and the years go by, and if that's something that you're passionate about, you'll continue to learn from it.
You made a great point about having tough conversations.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's really important for coaches just to be honest, because when you skirt an issue, when you sugarcoat something, you know, then the player leaves maybe with a different interpretation of that conversation than was intended.
Yeah.
And now you start to get this gap in understanding, and then they lose trust and whatnot. So I think it's always important for a coach to be pretty direct, pretty honest. It's not emotional. We're trying to get better. Like, this is what we need to do. Let's just be clear with it. I think that's an important part of coaching. You know, the X's and O's, the game management, that's a whole other side of the business. But it's a sliding scale, right? Like, some coaches could be incredible communicators and motivators, and some coaches may be incredible X's and O's or on the practice floor teachers. So there's a whole bunch of ways to coach and be effective and be tremendous coaches. Not everyone's excellent at all those things. You know, you have to be true to your personality, to your background, to your acumen. So that, I think, to answer the question, you know, in another way, is that, like, coaching can take on many different forms.
No, for sure.
Especially depending on your team, your personnel, your staff, your environment. Is it a developing team? Is it a contending team? Is it a team trying to find an identity? They all need slightly different coaching. So I think that's really important for fans to recognize, is a coach has to meet that team where they are, try to impart a vision, a clarity, like you said, on the way we operate, not just on how we behave every day, but also how are we going to play, what's our style of play. And then you're able to hopefully build those habits. You always talk about that too, building habits every day, and a team that's going to be able to trust each other and do the right things. How important are drawn plays versus letting your star player lead the offense freely? From Ball Muse.
How important is drawn plays and being able to have the ability to have the player be able to just be free and just make. I love great ATOs. And obviously you draw the play to start the game. You draw the play to start the second half. And I think that throughout the course of a game, when timeouts are happening, great ATOs catching the team off balance is something that's I think is really cool and really dynamic. And I've always acknowledged the coach. If the coach draw up a play and we go out there execute it, you like that was some good shit right there. Like that was dope. You know what I'm saying? But throughout the course of the game, you know, being able to you have to have the personnel. You know, to answer that second part, you have to have that player. You know, you have to have that person that is an extension as a coach, is an extension of him. You know, and out on the floor, that knows what you're trying to get across, how you want to play, and he's able to put guys in position that benefits their skill set. You know, and if you have that player that can not only get himself going, but also put the guys in position of how we want to execute and play out on the floor, then, you know, you let them go. You let them do it. You trust that. You just know that.
Play out of principle. Play out of spacing.
Play out of principle, play out of spacing. Okay, this is how we want to play. You know, and you know that he's going to put guys in position to not only help the ball club, but help his guys on the floor individually too. He's going to make sure that they're in the right positions, that they don't do things out on the floor that doesn't benefit their game or doesn't benefit their skill set.
Know your personnel.
Yeah, know your KYP. You know, know your personnel. If you got that guy, then you know that's awesome. So I think it's a. It depends on the personnel.
Right.
It depends on your personnel, but like I said, having a coach that can, you know, draw up a great ATO after a timeout, you know, catch a team off balance. I think that's pretty cool too.
Yeah, great ATOs are always fun.
Oh, it's always fun.
It's always fun. The reality is, and I think maybe this, and I'm not sure this is where the question's coming from, we don't see a lot of set plays in the NBA anymore. We've talked about this before, but the reason why, two main reasons. Teams switch a lot of stuff. So you could run the best ATO. If they switch it all, you're going to end up on the clock in ISO and getting to your spacing anyways. And so the other part of that is it's easier to play with pace and space. So when a team's retreating, they're on their heels, you got your star player coming down the floor. What do you want to do? Have LeBron James walk the ball up the court and call a play, or have LeBron catch that ball on the move, try to fight that defense while they're recovering. They're not set. They're not ready for no rotations. So the pie of offensive plays is becoming more and more pace and space, quick decisions, play out of principles, because defenses said, I can't let you have this easy, quick hitter. We're going to take that away by switching. We'll help from behind. We'll flood. We'll load to the ball, whatever it is. So the ATO is becoming important, but also in its own little part of the game. You know, end of game plays, ATOs, like you said, first of the play of the game, first play of the half. But essentially, the toughest thing to guard in our league is a team coming down full speed, wide spacing, and getting to a quick hitter, or having the star just go. You can get downhill. That's the best option we got.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. So that's an important thing for fans to recognize. All right, this question is from Ron. Can the NBA adapt to FIBA rules? I mean, this is a different question. Right. Of course we can.
Of course we can.
But why would we?
There's a couple things in FIBA that I like. When it comes to the rules, and obviously I've played a lot of FIBA games, being part of Team USA. The physicality that you're allowed to play with, is awesome. But we talked about this too. You're asking this question, but do fans want to see playoff basketball physicality for a full 82-game season? We discussed that. We don't have the answer to it. We don't know. It's for the fans. You guys talk to us.
But also straight zone.
Or
you got center can just sit in the middle of the paint.
Do we want to have it where you could just play straight zone and Victor Wembanyama and Rudy Gobert and those guys can literally just sit right there in the middle of the paint and they never have to leave. Do we want to see that type of game? I don't know.
Yeah.
The 40-minute game is intriguing.
It is.
Because the game happens so damn fast.
Right.
So there's no...
Isn't that crazy how international games can be over?
Oh my goodness. Yes. And you have no, there's no easing into an international game,
Right.
And that gives it a little bit more sense of urgency, so that's something to discuss. That would be something that could, we could possibly, have a conversation about. It'd be hard because, you start messing with the history of the game and all that stuff. You
Stats.
take 8 minutes, all that type of stuff. But something to discuss. That's something that could be talked about too. I've always I've been very intrigued with the goaltending rule.
I was going to ask you.
I actually love it. I love it. It's exciting. It doesn't happen as much as you would think.
Right.
And even when you're playing against the international guys and this is their rule, there's times where the ball is tinkling around the rim and they just, you kind of get oh shit, I should have went got it.
It's harder than it looks.
It's harder than it looks, but I think that's, I actually like the goaltending rule. It's pretty cool.
That's an interesting point because maybe I'm biased thinking NBA athletes are so, amazing athletes that they would become such a big part of our game. But I don't know. It's not that easy, right? You're looking to box out. You're looking to, defend. You're in a rotation, whatever it is. Then to just be there flat-footed to be able to go up and get a ball off the rim, it's not as straightforward.
No, it's not as straightforward.
I'd be scared if it did. I wouldn't like it if it was happening all the time.
Right.
There's a lid on the bucket.
Right.
But I think there is something to it. I wouldn't be opposed to exploring it.
Yeah. We have the G League.
We have the G League.
We have the G League.
The G League
we got
Showcase.
Summer League, the Showcase. We can try a couple. Yeah. I don't think the whole FIBA rules, I don't, but there's some things that we could possibly just tinker with maybe in the G League and the Summer League and see how it looks.
Yeah, look, the FIBA game is great.
Yeah.
It's great, it's different.
It's different.
The NBA game, why we've tried to no 3-second defensively in the lane, we've tried to create a more athletic, fast pace, guys getting downhill, making plays, getting on top of the rim. Now the game's stretched, so there's even more space. I love all that. I love seeing our athletes, our players, our skilled players thrive in the way that we've become accustomed to playing in the NBA. Is it perfect? No. But neither is FIBA. Right. I think it's great to have this kind of contrast.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a challenge, right? When you guys start playing for Team USA, it's not easy the first few games.
Oh no, it's a challenge.
It's different. The feeling the other team, it levels it a little bit, and then for it being such a contrast for NBA players, it takes time.
Yeah, it takes time, for sure. Yeah.
So in all, I think I vote NBA. Yeah. Now I think the NBA should stay with its ethos of trying to make this as exciting, athletic. But that doesn't mean that FIBA gaming isn't great, and that we could experiment with more things.
Yep, for sure.
To meet in the middle. LeBron, what team would you coach if you become a coach? Let me just stop that one right now and say, please don't coach. Please
There's
don't
no
coach.
way. There's no way, guys.
Please don't coach from Alfonso Taylor. Thanks for the question, bud.
Alfonso Taylor, appreciate you for a kind question, but it ain't happening. No team.
That's a zero chance.
Zero chance.
If you're counting at home.
Zero chance.
Thanks for watching Mind the Game. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe for more content.